Hi, Brian. We're on record. Just
Hi,
so you know.
Brian.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Evening.
Oh, wow. 6:27 already.
Yeah, 6:27. That's why I hit the record. I'll forget.
Getting all cloudy down here. I wonder if it's gonna rain. It's
It
cold.
feels great right here now. It's a little bit cloudy, but it's so much cooler. It cooled off this evening.
Yeah, it's definitely cool here,
Oh,
which is better than hot.
yes.
That's for sure. I better turn on my lights.
So you have your angel halo? Hi,
Yeah.
Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
It's so weird. I still look like green on this, or blue. Something other than normal.
It's just your lighting. I don't think you look green, but
A little bluish.
okay, a little bluish maybe.
A little blue tint.
Yeah,
It's weird because there's nothing in here that's blue.
right. It could just be whatever the lighting is off the laptop, right? So,
Yeah, maybe the
Gotta
window.
do it the light.
yeah, it could be the window. Interfaction.
It's the only thing. Yeah. All right. Well, blue's better than green, actually.
Yeah, I would think so.
I mean, there's always a silver lining, right?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Hi, Al, since you're next door. Do you want me to shut that door so you don't hear me and we don't get any background noise? Maybe so. huh?
I'll get it.
Okay, you got it. All right. Just in case.
Yeah, the stereo sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you. It's 6:30, but I know Director Zuka and Vice President Bella are going to be here, so. District engineer is going to be a little late. Brandon will be here about 7. I just admitted Sheldon. And Kirk, before closed session, if we can just take a 5-minute break so that I can text CPS and they'll open up the closed session for you guys, okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
There's Lewis.
There's Lewis. Make sure Matt hasn't texted me. I got no text.
Is Kathy not coming tonight? She
Mm.
said.
She'll be absent. Yeah, she'll be absent. And like I said, for the record, Brandon Laurie will be representing PCG and he'll come in late about 7. One more minute, Kirk.
Yeah, let's give Matt another minute or so.
Yeah, I don't see Lewis anymore.
Oh, I admitted him.
He's there, so there is a quorum.
Yeah, there's a quorum. There he is. Yeah, I do see him. Hi, Sheldon and Lewis.
Oh, he must be like on the arrow
I
down. There he
can't
is.
See you.
There. We
I was
gotta-
on mute because
That's
that's
okay,
the way
you're-
we normally do it.
That's right. Hi, Sheldon.
Hello. Had to run downstairs for a second.
Okay, so
6:33, you ready, Kirk?
Yeah, we have a quorum now.
yeah, I'm
Might as
ready.
well.
Okay. So let me call the Board of Directors meeting to order, and let's establish the quorum, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Mid-Peninsula regular board meeting. Tonight is May 26th, and we'll call the roll. President Wheeler,
Present.
Vice President Vella,
Here,
Director Schmidt,
Here.
Director Zuka is absent, and Director Jordan is also absent. But we expect Zuka later, yes?
That's, as far as I know, yes, he'll be present.
Okay, and we have a quorum.
Okay. Then we can go on to item 2, public comment. Do we have any members of the public or submittals?
None were received by the general manager's office in writing.
Okay. So we can go on to agenda review. Anyone have additions, deletions, or want to pull any item from the consent agenda?
oh, we're good.
Okay. Then,
Matt's
Okay.
coming in now.
okay, let's let him get on and say hello.
Sorry, I'm late, everybody.
No problem.
No problem. We just approved agenda review with no additions or deletions, unless you have something.
No, that's good with me. Thank you.
Okay. Acknowledgement presentation. We have received or included in our package is a copy of the proclamation that the city of Belmont gave us. When was it? It was March,
April 12th.
April 12th.
Mhm.
So I think we mentioned last month that I had attended, Tammy had attended, and Brian and Kathy had attended, and Lewis was on video.
Mhm.
So they managed to include quite a bit of information about how serious the drought is, which was good. And then we can go on to the consent agenda, item 5.
Scroll back up here real quick. Sorry. Okay, there you go. And there's 3 sets of minutes, your 2 special board meeting, May 11th and 12th, and then the regular meeting from the 28th.
Anyone have any questions, or can we go directly to a motion?
I'll move to approve.
A second.
Okay,
Are you ready for a roll call vote?
roll call, please.
Okay, Director Zuka,
Yes.
Director Schmidt,
Yes.
President, Vice President Vella,
Yes,
and President Wheeler.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay. So next item of business, item 6A. Under hearings, consider ordinance number 123, amending attachment A regarding rates and fees.
Yeah, I'm scrolling down real quick. Sorry, I'm trying not to go too fast so I don't freak anybody out with their eyesight. Maybe it's just me, but I can't scroll real fast, otherwise I pass by something. So to date, we have received, and I failed to get the addresses. I was going to put those in the record. We've received 3 protests that have been verified. So this ordinance 123, this is the board's opportunity to open the public hearing. I'm sorry, that's not included in the staff report. We have it printed on the agenda to open the hearing to see if anybody's present. I'm looking right now at the video and I don't see any members of the public present tonight. As the board knows, we've reported that the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission approved a wholesale water rate increase back in April, and they confirmed it, and it will increase our rate from $4.10 a unit to $4.75 a unit effective July 1st of this year. And this action tonight was in compliance with Proposition 218. So a notice was mailed to all parcel owners and tenants, more than 10,000, as Monique has provided updates on in her administrative services manager's report. And as I stated earlier, I confirmed this afternoon, 3 protests have been received. So this increase is included in the budget that will be considered by the board in the next agenda item under regular business. Here in the background, I provide that the notice was mailed on April 1st. Here's the stats that Monique provided. 18 of the accounts were not eligible because they were temporary hydrant meters. And the protest would have had to be 50% plus 1 or 4,041 for there to be a successful protest. There was not received that many. And so, again, she straights the 3. I wanted to update that. So that's why I asked Misty this afternoon to make sure none others have been received, and there have been none. And then we attached ordinance number 123, and that shows the updated water rate schedule, including just the changes to the commodity charges. There's no changes to the monthly service fees, just the commodity charges for both the residential and commercial tiers. So if that summary presentation is satisfactory, you can open your hearing, consider any oral testimony, and I still see no one present from the public.
Okay. Then I think we can close the public hearing portion of this segment.
You need a motion. I'll move to close the public hearing.
No, you don't need a motion.
Yeah,
All right, so we'll close it.
and we go on to part 6, which is to consider the actual ordinance.
I put up on the screen board the actual schedule, so you can see here in the top that none of the service charges are changing from between 2021 and 2022, and the charges that change are here in the consumption charges. Per district council's advice each year, after tonight's hearing, tomorrow will be rushed to the printer a notice card that will go to every customer with this rate schedule in it to show that these rates will be in effect on July 1st of 2022, based on your action this evening. That's all.
Okay. Then I think we're ready for a motion.
Are you gonna bring it to comments or question from the board, or?
Well, certainly if anyone has a comment or question.
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick comments. Tammy, the 3 protests that we received you said they were verified, right?
Yes.
And they were from 3 separate clients that we have, or from the same
No,
family?
3 separate customers.
3 separate customers.
Yes.
And this information that we have here, this can be found on our website as well.
Yes, this will be posted tomorrow, this schedule. We always replace it when the board approves rate adjustments, and it will also be included in the rates cards that will be mailed to every customer.
Okay. In the current website that we have now, are there any indication that the rates are going to be going up at all?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's all over the front page, the home page. And we actually have a separate section for news and notices that has every rates notice we've mailed for, gosh, probably the past 6 to 8 years.
Excuse me, sorry.
Okay, so the public had the ability to see this coming, not only because of the public hearing notices that we had, but also on our website.
Yes,
And-
and it was mailed out more than
Any
the
of the
45
flyers?
days. Yeah.
Okay.
The requirement is 45 days in advance of the public hearing. So April 1st was our mail date.
And didn't we send out a mailer too?
Yes,
point? Good.
yes.
So what I'm getting, I mean, I'm sure you know what I'm getting at, you know, the public had ample opportunities to look at this and to protest if they wanted to, because we will receive the protest probably when these rates are actually sent to the public now.
Yes, in August is when we'll be
Yep.
getting all the telephone
Yep.
calls.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
So, okay, those are the comments that I wanted to bring, Kirk. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And if there's no other comments, I'm prepared to make a motion.
And I think you can go ahead, Louis.
Okay, very good. I'll move to approve ordinance number 123, amending attachment and regarding rates and fees to the water service ordinance number 103 for the Mid-Peninsula Water District.
Second,
That was you, Brian, that seconded?
Yes.
yes,
Okay, then we can take a roll call vote.
Okay, Vice President Bella,
Yes,
Director Schmidt,
yes,
Director Zuka,
Yes,
and President Wheeler.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you all.
So we can go on to the next piece of business, our regular business agenda. 7A, consider resolution 2022-11, approving our fiscal year 2022-2023 operating and capital budgets.
Thank you. And I wanted to acknowledge Tom Neister is here from the public. He just joined the meeting. Welcome, Tom. So this is our annual budgeting for operating and capital. I used Al's going to join me in this, and we'll kind of tag team this effort. He's going to explain these operating budget with the differences between the operating and the capital. And what I wanted to say in his background, he provided that we visited with the finance committee twice, and that's where we take all of the detailed information and hammer that out. And this is the resulting budget. And then once Al kind of goes over and summarizes the operating budget for 2022-23 and then the capital, I'll pick back up and talk about the changes and the information on the second page of the staff report that talks about, you know, what the finance committee requested, which was the differences in the personnel costs and why they're going up for 22-23. So Al, you want to go through this summary here on this page?
Okay. Let's see. I'm not muted, right?
No, we hear you.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure. Thank you. Anyway, the format is pretty similar to prior years. Here, the top line, you have the total revenue for the given years. The first column is for the proposed budget we're bringing to you tonight. Next column over is last year's approved budget, and then the 3 years prior audited results for those categories: revenue, expenses, which does include depreciation, as is noted, and then the net result is the difference between the revenue and the expenses. There is a deficit budgeted for this year, slightly smaller than last year's budgeted deficit. Hopefully, during the year, if cost savings can be incurred or additional revenue comes in, it's possible that will be end up being not a negative as far as that goes. I do want to point out, because depreciation of over $1 million is included in here, while deficit is projected, it is still a positive cash flow from operations being projected. So moving down to the capital budget, you'll see what, what makes up the 11,793,000 there. And the funding for those, as I mentioned, even though we had a deficit budgeted in the operations budget, it still is projected to provide a positive cash flow, and that's what the 788,782 is. That's the cash provided by the operations for the budget. And then the next items are the estimated balance of what's in the bank for the capital funds, or for the capital projects for the COP projects. And then using the capital reserves, and then to pay the balance, it would be using the unassigned reserves or general reserves.
Thank you, Al. So moving on, Al outlined here on the second page, the most significant changes. You'll see them in this bullet list, mostly, represented by the commodity charge revenues that's expected to increase because of the wholesale water rate increase you just approved. And similarly, the purchase water charges expense will be increased as well. And we tidied up the property tax revenue when we did our trend analysis to more adequately represent what is being collected, which is about $120,000 higher. I'll talk next about the salaries and wages expense increasing by $602,000, which is mostly represented by the overlap for retiring positions, and for that succession planning, and for related cash outs that are expected. And then same with the depreciation expense, and looking at the trends and, using the calculation factors to decrease that to be more representative of what it should be. Outreach and education increased by the 133,000, and that's because we pushed forward another 100,000 for Long Be Gone, just because the project that's currently being worked on is not finished, and we want to continue to encourage Long Be Gone next year. And then, of course, there are some increased costs expected in maintenance and repair, the O&M, because of increased cost of materials and supplies. So the Finance Committee in this next section, they asked at the last meeting to provide a breakdown to the board of the total $2.7 million of projected salaries and wages. And thank you, Al, for doing this bullet list that just shows for the first bullet that, the representative dollars are almost $225,000 for succession plan positions. And those are from September 1st, when we anticipate that the next GM will take over, through March 31st, which is the date of my retirement. So that includes my position as general manager, bringing on the potential full-time administrative services manager, having some time in for the CFO to carry over into the next fiscal year, the management analyst. There'll be some training for the water resources coordinator position, and then for a retiring water system operator, all happening in the first quarter of 2023. 134,000 approximately represents the potential accrued leave cash outs. We're doing our best guess on that. We know that there's opportunities that employees may push some of their cash outs to the 401 and the 457 plan that the district has. So we're just making the best estimates, since this is a budget document and a plan, to make sure that we're prepared for those, especially for the two longer term employees. And then we usually and typically every year include 5% to cover employee merit increases. So 103,000 is represented by that for the regular employees. And then the rest is what it would just cost if we weren't to provide all that overlap, to just have the staff, about $2.3 million. And then the last item, which is always popular every year, is an account line item in the miscellaneous services. And so every year, not only do I show this to the Finance Committee, but to the board, so you understand what's rolled up into that. Excuse me. O&M expects to continue with a contract. It appears to have been successful this year. And at the same rate that they went out and secured the services of Daco Construction, they want to do that again next fiscal year, same amount at 150,000. John Davidson, who continues to do our public outreach and relations and our website management, his fees, I believe they'll be unchanged. I'm projecting that. He's at the end of his 2-year agreement. Hopefully I'll be able to secure another 2-year agreement, but this is 1 year's worth. 60,000 are for his services and 15,000 is for the printing services that he provides for all the notices, rates notices, the CCR, and anything that gets mailed out to customers. He has this whole process where it all is just one-stop shop. It's very, very convenient for us. HF&H to complete the water rate study. You just approved that contract, 48,000. That will be carrying over into next fiscal year. And hopefully we'll have a nice draft report come fall. And then RDN, it's going to carry over a little bit into next year, but they're near ready to present to the finance committees, but 20,000 of that will carry over to next fiscal year. And then the asset management system and updated GIS that you're going to hear about from Rena in the next agenda item is budgeted here in miscellaneous services. And then we have miscellaneous, we bumped it up from $50,000 to $60,000. So for a total of $424,000 for miscellaneous professional services. And with that, I'll show you what the budget looks like, the summary page. This is the resolution. Thank you, Al, for putting it together. We've never had it ready in the packet format for tonight, and I'm really happy that you did that. But here's the lead documents. Here's your final draft budget. And as Al was talking about earlier, you'll see the actuals through, should be April right here, April 30th instead of March 31st. Al just caught that right before the start of the meeting. The preliminary budget is here in column 3, and you'll see where he was talking about we expect revenues to come in, total revenues at just over 15 million, and that our expenses will be, our total operating expenses will be about 14.3 million. And that's why he just showed you on the capital, and I'll show you next, this overage or the surplus of 788. So because we tidied up on those expenses, even with the increased personnel costs. And then here's his depreciation expense. And then there's the projected deficit and the transfer that would need to come in, because we've been advised, and I remind you every year, that the budget should show a transfer for your lenders and for future debt financings, that you use your cash reserves, even though this is just a plan. And as Al mentioned earlier, even this year, this fiscal year, we're expecting there not to be a deficit. So this is just a plan document, and we do the best to stick to it for expense purposes, but we just never know if there's going to be some extra expenses incurred due to an emergency or something that was unexpected, or revenues that might come in that we weren't expecting. And for capital, one page, okay? To keep it from getting too confusing, these are the projects that we have listed for next fiscal year. Oak County Road, this is the estimate that we have from the engineer right now, almost 5.7 million. I wish I could report that we were going to spend that by the December timeframe, but it looks like that project is going to be a little bit delayed. It is at 100% design, but as of yesterday or day before, it's going to be pushed out a couple of months while we get through the process with the Department of Water Resources, just because there's a few spots where our water main is going to come into closer contact with some other utilities under the Oak County Road. Harbor Boulevard is expected to be replaced and constructed in next fiscal year. This is the water main from, help me out, Rena, is it from ECR? Or is it from Old County Road to the interstate? I forget.
Yes, Old County Road.
Old County Road to the interstate.
Or Highway
101.
101.
And then the DeKoven tank utilization project, which is a combined project. It includes Lincoln, Newlands, and Oak Knolls water main replacements. It's currently in design by Mott McDonald. That will be ready for construction next fiscal year, totaling 1.7 million. We've had some examples this year with a couple of contractors doing those Hastings Drive service connection replacements. So we anticipate we're going to put a process together and get some contractors out there to get those completed next fiscal year. And let's see what's next. Belmont Canyon Road, Vine Street. Belmont Canyon Road is at 243 to get it finished. And the rest of Vine Street and Hastings Drive, 350. And then we've got what, the Dairy Lane, we're hopefully we can get that into design next year. And then the last thing, as you recall, we asked the board for support for the prep project. That 100,000 is in the capital budget for next fiscal year. Currently, District Council, Rena and I were working on the memorandum of understanding just to make sure all the language is down, and we will present that to the board for approval. But we went ahead and put that in the capital budget. So it's part of this $11.8 million plan. And as Al just covered, here's that operating surplus. What we project will be available in the COP funds. Your capital reserves right now are at 1.5 million, and then we will use 1.5 million from other reserves. Your reserve policy right now is 3 million, and there's approximately 13.8 or close to $14 million in your reserve account. And we will be bringing that back to the board as well to talk about how you want to do those extra reserves that we have. So for a total $11.8 million for next year. And that's all, unless there are questions, Rena, unless you wanted to add anything else regarding the capital or anything I missed, Al or Monique.
I think you covered it, Tammy.
Thank you. Or questions from the board?
Unfortunately, I can't see anybody's hand, so
I don't see
We'll have
anybody's
to
hand
speak up.
raised. I don't see anyone's hand raised. And I do want to thank the finance committee. You know, they've had to meet every month so far, and they've had some big items to consider. So thank you, Kirk and Lewis, for being there and being available.
And Tammy, I just have a question on the reserves. I know we've talked a little bit about coming back and revisiting that as a policy. What's the timing on that?
So I did present that this month to your finance committee. I presented a draft of increasing your reserves to 10 million. You know, I'm mostly concerned, Matt, about the potential implementation of the Bay Delta plan and ensuring that you have adequate operating reserves. So that is something that I'm going to bring back to them. To be fair, it was the first time I brought it to them.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a thought process. You'll see that probably in the next couple of months.
Yeah, that's fine. I just, I know I see we're pulling 3 million out in this budget.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a hefty sum. And I just want to make sure that we're making progress towards, you know, having that conversation.
Thank you. We want to protect those one-time, you know, cash inflows that we got from the sale of the properties, right?
Yeah.
Because that was something the board asked me to do, is keep an eye on that.
Thank you. That was it.
Thank you. I'll scroll back up to the reso. So in the reso, you'll see we just outlined everything, you know, in summary format, what the revenues, expenses, and the working capital reserves will be to make that zero out, and then your capital budget. And then this document gets sent to the county clerk, the county controller, and the county treasurer of the county of San Mateo. Resolution 2022-11.
Kirk?
any other
If I may-
questions?
Yeah, I have a quick comment.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, so Tammy or Al, if you could explain to the board, I'm sure that most of it, we talked about this at the finance committee, so this is not new, and I don't want to kind of repeat myself here, but to the benefit of the rest of the board, most of us are used to bringing in a balanced budget, and then chances are that something is gonna go wrong during the year, and we're gonna have to make some adjustments. Here we're coming in with a budget on the operating side that is going to be short, and we're hoping that we'll be able to find some savings somewhere along the way, which is kind of a little bit in reverse. Could you comment on that, please?
Yes, thank you. So when we talked at the finance committee, you know, the projected deficit is no different than the one that was projected last year. Just like Al mentioned up here, you'll see this 380,000 was projected. This is a plan, and the best we could do, even when we started this, if the finance committee, the very first presentation, it was closer to $500,000. So we went back.
I see the
remember?
emphasis on operating. Look at
Yes.
the word operating.
Yes.
2 eyes. That
Yeah.
means the emphasis on operating.
Yeah, and so we definitely went back and just said, look, let's really sharpen up. Let's get the finance committee what they wanted with the details. And oh, by the way, I should comment, Director Jordan and Smith asked for the detail sheets. I did forward that to the entire board. So you could see all the backup documentation for the summary for the operating. So, it's not unusual that there would be a projected deficit. As Al said, there's actually going to be this operating surplus, right? But when you consider the depreciation and everything else, it projects out to be the 301,218. This number here, this 388.81, right now we know that's going to be a positive about 600,000 or 700,000. But this is what was budgeted, and so we try to keep these columns, comparing apples to apples. These three columns, as Al mentioned, were actuals, audited numbers. So does that help? Louis, did I answer that question for you?
Yeah, I just wanted the rest of the board to
Yeah.
kind of rehash that to make sure that we did talk about it at the finance committee, and thank you. That's all I had.
Sure, thank you.
I mean, to be clear, we're actually projecting on a cash flow basis to be almost $800,000 in the positive. So
That's correct.
yeah.
I don't know if this is important to add. One thing, the 3 actual years compared to the budget years, these do not include your debt principal, because it's taken from basically an income statement from the audit, and principal does not go on the statement. But those funds do have to be paid, and so they are budgeted. So there is a pretty significant, $400,000 budgeted to be expended that when you get the actual results wouldn't be included in there, and that by itself would put the net results to a positive figure. It doesn't change the cash going out, and definitely, that should be included in your budget because it is money going out. But I did want to mention that changes from budget to the actual results.
Yeah, thank you for that, Al.
But Al, clarification though, on the past 3 years, the depreciation was included, right?
Well, yes.
Okay, all right.
Depreciation would be included for those years, but not the debt principal, which
Yeah.
is budgeted. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, do we have any other comments or questions? Then would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the resolution 2022-11.
I second.
Very well. We can call the roll.
Okay, Director Zuka,
Yes.
Vice President Vella,
Yes.
Director Schmidt,
Yes.
and President Wheeler.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Okay, moving
Thank
on
you.
to the next item, 7B.
Rena?
Professional services
Yes.
contract with Spatial Wave of Laguna Hills.
Yeah, thank you. So staff is asking the board to consider this resolution 2022-12, which authorizes a professional service agreement with, as you heard the board president mentioned, Spatial Wave from Southern California. And it's for the implementation of an asset management process for operations, and also to update our GIS system to kind of bring it into the 21st century. You see that it's for a total of a little over $70,500. We've been talking in the operations about some sort of asset management product or solution for ourselves for a number of years. And one of our newer employees said, hey, we use this Spatial Wave product when I was working at the other water agency, and I really liked it, thought it was pretty easy to use. And it allowed us to do a good job of, taking information from their courtyard out in the field and do your work, put the data into a tablet or a smartphone, come back and then download it into a server back at work. And so Brett and I spent some time with Spatial Wave and saw what our employee was talking about. It seemed like it was a pretty good solution for what we have. And so what we're asking the board to do is to allow them, a Spatial Wave, to see in the fiscal impact. They're going to spend about 1,400 hours on our GIS information, taking a look at what we have currently, and then taking a look at other information that we have not uploaded into GIS, and then also doing some field reconnaissance to verify locations of water valves and water meters and so on. And then once they do all that, then we've asked them to provide us with their product for asset management, which they call the field maplet workflow. And we've asked them for 4 of the products that they provide services for this asset management for, and it's going to focus on fire hydrants, it's going to focus on valve exercise, and it's going to focus on leak detection and tracing, and then also on our field locations. They have other applications or field maplets, but we wanted to try this first to see how we like it, and then we'll come at some future budget time and ask the board to give us some more funding to add some more. And then along with it, you see there's a $15,000 cost for the use of the server and the software. So this is our first step into this, but we like the product. We think it's user friendly. There's going to be some training to be provided by the Spatial Wave folks. And then on top of that, we have at least one employee who spent some time with it at another agency and thought it was just a really good product and think that it'll work well for us. So that's what we have for the board tonight, and just see if they have any questions for staff regarding this request.
I wanted to add that one of the concerns that has been expressed to me over the past year or two from the operations team members, or some of them, is just that the map books haven't been as timely updated as they have been in the past. And that's because we're just busy. And, we didn't hire anybody new during the, boom in development, and we do not have a lot of staff experienced in GIS. So this was one of those solutions that, and became an employee suggestion that we were able to investigate and potentially implement. And that is to, really focus on how we're going to update these resources so staff have what they need to do their jobs and do them more efficiently, especially out in the field. And then, coming from another staff member who's experienced in using it, we're going to have not just the ability to have the training that's provided by the cost proposal, but also from the staff member who is experienced. He's a water system operator and he has experience using it. We've reached out to other water districts, and they are also moving forward with different vendors. And we've looked into their different vendors as well. But they're doing the same thing for the same reasons, that staff, they're going through the same issues we are with staff retiring, and they're not able to keep up with their map books or the resources they need to do these things out in the field, even when it's in repair. And most of this is going to be just catching us up, and that is something that we know we need to get accomplished. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents, because I was able to meet with the general managers here on the peninsula last month, and we all talked about contracts that we're going to be doing with these very similar services.
Matt, did you have a question?
Yeah. So could someone walk through the 1,400 hours for $42,000 and how we're able to get a $30 an hour billing rate?
Yeah, and talking with the consultant, or the folks from Spatial Wave, they say they use folks from outside the country. They didn't say specifically where, but I suspect probably someplace in Southeast Asia, and so the labor is just a lot cheaper. So that's how they get there.
And then the workflow implementation is then done presumably by US-based staff?
Yeah, folks in Southern California. Yes.
Okay.
Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah. This looks like a good idea, but I did have some questions. On page 54, it says first year server and software costs is 15,000.
Yes.
So this is going to be an annual cost?
There'll be an annual cost. I'm not sure if it's going to be $15,000, but at least the first year it is.
Okay. And if, let's say we decide at some future point, we want to use a different vendor, or this vendor goes out of business or something, is what they've created transferable, or we have to recreate it?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer for that, but we can ask them how transferable is their GIS. I mean, I believe that they use is it
ArcGIS, they use
ArcGIS, yeah,
ArcGIS,
as the GIS platform, and that's
Yeah.
pretty standard. So if from that standpoint, I think it would be transferable. But I mean, the field maplet workflow, that is their own proprietary software, and so I think at that point, it would be something different. But by updating our GIS, whoever gets it in the future, if we decide we want to transfer, trade, or hire another contractor, it's just going to be in a lot better shape than what we currently have.
So the updated GIS that they create will be our property? that we
Yes,
take
yeah.
some-
Mhm.
Okay. And then regarding utility locations, maybe this might be an agenda item at some future point, though, as a very much a non-expert, I've never understood why utility locations are so difficult, especially for our own utilities. Shouldn't we know exactly where everything is? Why do we need to locate it? So I don't know if that's a
So
complicated subject.
let me start, because Irena can join in, but that's what the purpose of GIS and the map books are. And one of the things I heard today during our staff meeting by the water system operator, Ryan Gomes, who's used this system, is that while they're out in the field, they're able, when there's a water main replacement, they're able to draw right there in the system, and rather than having to wait or it being backlogged like we have now. We have backlog because we have paper. We have paper work orders, right? And so this is all going to automate that process. So we do know where the system is. We do have the map books. And then, what has to happen now with this backlog in GIS is we have to go back through, and the staff has to figure out, okay, what's been done, if anything's been done to this line. They've got to do a little more research right now. And that's where we need to get updated on. So that's how they get out and look for the system. I know, Rena, you've talked about, and Brent's mentioned in the past, a couple of challenges in finding some things like that are in the, up country, or, that are long hauls on mains, or valves
That or some of the
know,
older stuff, that
Yeah.
have no tracing wire or anything on
Yeah.
them. And so it's basically operator experience and/or, somebody who's confident in using divining rods or something that might help out. Or, worst case is you might, well, not worst case, but, you might go out there and pothole to try and locate something, or you might accidentally run into it, and that'd be the worst thing. But we do need to know where our utilities are located, and we have some pretty good mapping, but it's starting to show its age. And so this is going to give us an opportunity to bring our information out in the field into much better shape than what it currently is.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand why we need a pothole at all. But I don't know, maybe let me save this for another time, maybe see if Director Jordan is also interested in understanding why that's part of our
Well,
work.
one of the reasons is some of the lines are 50, 60 years old, and they've never had any problems, or we've never had to go out there, right? And nobody here has been here 50 or 60 years, right? And so, the guys who have been here for 25, approaching 30 years, can typically say, oh, has there been any before? There was such good records on our work order forms. Do I remember this? Do I have this institutional knowledge or this base that I can go out there and find it? But for the most part, there's no way we could keep up with 300 and 400 locates per month if they didn't know where the water mains were, right? But it does there are some challenges. I've seen 2 or 3 of them out there together, knowing that they just couldn't exactly pinpoint it. And then once they do, that information goes into the map book. But right now it's all paper based. And so that's what's going to get uploaded into GIS.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'll take
Thanks for
this
the
up later.
question. Yeah, thanks for the questions.
Quick comment.
Yeah, Louis, go ahead.
Yeah, to Brian's comment, I've worked with, we used to call them blog books. Here we call them map books, the same thing. But it is very difficult when you work with paper to put in what ends up after a project. You're supposed to get the as-built. Once you get the as-built drawing, you hope that it is accurate, and then that should go into a map book. There is a process that goes into a map book, but it's all, at least when I was doing it, was all hand drawn. And you are at the mercy of whoever is doing it, and they have to have the time to do it as well. So I'm not surprised that we have some utilities that are older, that we may not know exactly where they're at. We know the proximity, and we don't know what they're at. And you're also, relying on the accuracy of whoever inputs that drawing manually into the map books. The other thing, the one thing that I was hoping that I would see here, Rena, is like a comparative analysis, like a study like this. This is going to save us so many staff hours doing this. And so, we're hoping that the cost of this program and this system, plus, like Brian said earlier, it looks like we may gonna end up with an annual cost too, because that's what you do when you download an app, or you buy a program, you're stuck with the contract later on. So it looks like we're gonna be seeing this in the budget in some form or fashion, in the past. But it would be nice to say, yes, this is an expense that we incurred that we're going to do, but it's going to save us this amount of staff hours doing it manually, or it's going to include what we are doing into something that we have not had the time to do because we don't have enough staff to do it. That would be something that would be a good, and I don't think it's that difficult. I mean, I think it's more complicated talking about it than actually
We can provide
understanding
an
that,
estimate.
yeah,
we could do that. That's a great point.
Yeah,
Louis.
that's
I
how
mean,
you justify
honestly, yeah.
these additional expenses,
Yeah.
because we cannot stagnate in what we were doing 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Now, even a year ago is like ancient history with the way things are going and things are progressing. So, but again, you bring something like this in front of a group of policymakers to approve or not, that is what we want to see. That's something that I would be looking for. That's all.
I think Rena can provide that in his next month's staff report, because it's really, like you said, it's going to be an estimate, like how much of Brent's time right now, that's who does this, right?
Right.
How
right.
much of his
Exactly.
time is probably at least a third, and we'll tell you based on his total comp how much that is costing the district. He just has no time and he has no bandwidth to do
Right.
this, right? So we can definitely do that. We don't have
Correct.
anybody else experienced or trained in GIS. So that's the reason why we're pursuing this. So I believe he can include that in his operations manager report next month and let you know what that would be. That estimate.
Yeah. And
question.
Rena, I'm not looking for, nickel and diming this, okay? Because I don't want you guys to spend a lot of time trying to do, but we should have a pretty good estimate as to where we're heading with this. And the other thing that is also equally as important is, these companies that sell these programs or these systems, do we know of other agencies or water agencies that are using the same program, and how long has it been around? And that the point that Brian brought up earlier is a very, very important point, because these companies tend to be here today and gone tomorrow, and then what do? Are we left holding the bag? And how do you transfer it to another similar program, or how can you download it to something else that we can continue on? So those are very important things to ask when you're budgeting this kind of money for a new method of delivering your service. So
If the board would like, I mean, I could ask them for a list of water agencies, but even the staff report on page 54 at the bottom, it says that Spatial Wave and then companies that they work with. You can see down there, they work with such companies like Microsoft. There's a company called DCSE, they're GIS based type company. GTAC, we're familiar with them. We've got some of their tablets or computers here. And then of course, IBM. So, it seems like it appears that Spatial Wave has been around for some 25 years, just focusing on asset management and so on.
Yeah.
But I can ask them if they have a list of water agencies.
I'm sure they do. I'm surprised they didn't present it to you, because that's usually how how they sell the product, people like you are using it and they're happy with it or whatever,
Mhm.
Okay, well, I mean, we know the drill.
Yeah, we can follow up with that as well.
Thank you.
Rena, I had a quick question. Is this system going to be coordinated with the city in terms of being able to identify other utilities that are in the street?
I do not believe so. Their focus is going to be on our water system and information that we have and not any other utility. I think that would just mean that we would require, more time, but it's not expensive time, but I think it's just going to pretty much focus on our. So, I mean, if you were to take a look at our map book, that what Tammy refers to, it's just a series of paper pages, that have our infrastructure on there, where the water line is located, what size it is, what the material is, and then where the either fire service line or a water service to a customer goes to. It's just all about us. It's not about the city of Belmont sewer system or storm drain system, though I do believe we have some layers in our GIS that has their information. We didn't ask, or I didn't ask this company if they could take that information and upload it into whatever work they're going to do on our behalf. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it may just be a matter of that Jubin is going to end up having to coordinate those types of things as we start a design project to identify what other utilities may be nearby. But, they're also going to end up having to locate when they do the design work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's marginal as to whether or not trying to use somebody else's GIS locations is useful to the field staff. It's more important, I guess, the design level to find conflicts.
And a question I asked, because one of my general manager colleagues brought this up with their contract, North Coast, Coastside, and Prisma. I know Prisma is moving forward with theirs, and then North Coast is doing a similar contract with a vendor, and that is the coordination with their billing system, their financial management system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important because when the work orders, some of the work orders are generated out of customer service, right, and admin, and all of that, making sure that that can integrate into our Springbrook financial management system.
Yes.
So he's verifying, I didn't know if you already verified that will talk, and that, they'll be able to access, and they'll be able to, rather than right now when the paper comes back, it gets handed into admin, or here it is after we use it, or they get copies of it. So we did look at that integration as well, and I appreciated that, because
That's what I remember. They said they could integrate with
Yeah,
our
yeah.
billing system.
Real
our-
happy to know that that's going
Springbrook.
to happen. Thank you, Brenna.
So Tammy, if we were to buy this program and have the annual, could we let the city use it and for a fee?
Again, if they want our GIS overlay after this is updated, then yeah, we could say in order to provide that, and the same with them, but typically it just depends on what
I mean, they're
they
using
need
our
it for.
details. They're using
Well,
our details,
just
right?
like
So
just like Brenna said, they maintain probably a mountainous GIS record and file, because they probably have several overlays with their storm drain systems and their wastewater and everything else, and the roads and streets. They must have just a massive GIS mapping system. But at the same time, it's just a matter of getting it up to date. We're already in the county database system, where we get regular updates to parcels, and if they change, or if their sizes change, if somebody has lot line changes and all that, and that all that stuff has to be updated. That takes a person, a human being, to do that, right? To take that shape file and make sure that our system has accepted it and that it matches an owner, some owner information, and then also coordinated with the billing system. So it's all very technical, but at the same time, we're used to in the utilities business having drafters. That there's a drafter that they come fresh out of college, and that's what they do, right? They just do all these line drawings and take all these work orders and make sure all that information is there. And it's
hey,
important.
that was my first job.
I know,
with the
man.
city. Come on.
I
That was my
worked
first job with the city of Redwood City.
in 1991. We had drafters. So it's just a we don't have that luxury, right? We're a small organization. We're very multi-talented here. We are multi-skilled and we are juggling a lot of balls in the air. And, with all due respect, I just didn't want anybody to feel like, we didn't hear them, the employees that talked to me, and just the stretching of Brent Chester, right? And knowing that, he's just stretched in a bunch of different directions, and he's taken on all the new development and all that. And that's why this backlog has happened. It has not been by any means to be that somebody wasn't able to do their job. It's just been the bandwidth. There's no bandwidth there left for people in operations to do this. So anyway, I love it because it's going to provide training opportunity for our new hires and our existing staff to learn new skills. It's cloud-based, which is the path we're following with everything else, moving to Microsoft 365, putting our FMS out there. So it's just following in line. And all the questions you're asking with regard to, its proprietary nature and who owns it, they're just great questions. They're questions that we're interested in as well, and ensuring that our data is safe and not breached, and that we're able to, own it and have access to it at all times.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I thought
Second.
we're gonna get some more information from that, but
To approve the
I guess-
contract?
no, I'm okay.
Okay.
I'll second.
We'll bring back that information to respond
Yeah.
to your questions. No
All right.
problem at all.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
And roll call?
Okay, Director Zuka,
Yes.
Vice President Vella,
Yes,
Director Schmidt,
Yes,
and President Wheeler.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
And moving on to our next item, amendment to TRC's contract.
Yes, so this, if you recall, board, was the closed session item we spoke of last month. TRC is the company that's been our construction manager, construction inspector for the El Camino Real capital project. So this resolution 2022-13 authorizes an amendment so that we can reimburse TRC for services they've been providing. If you recall, this construction project from the closed session was supposed to have been completed in mid-November 2021. The contractor actually didn't get to substantial completion until the end of calendar year 2021, or December 31st. So up until that time, they've been running on liquidated damages. But in the meantime, the contract with TRC had run out of approved funding by the board. Staff and TRC and discussing with the contractor felt that we were going to be wrapping things up fairly quickly. It didn't turn out that way. And as you can see by some of the progression in the staff report, actually, during the month of December, there was still a lot of work that was being done by the contractor and TRC. But once we started getting into January, the work kind of tailed off by the contractor. And in February, there was no billable work by TRC because the contractor hadn't done much. And the last couple of months in March and April, it's just been kind of slowly grinding through the punch list items. And there's still a few punch list items to go. And I think one of the biggest hangups that took place was at one point in time, the contractor, when they're doing some trench work, they ran into and struck a Caltrans video cable for one of the intersections. I think I mentioned it's Middle Road in here. And it's interesting, we found out that Caltrans doesn't have to mark their utilities. And if you read the law, it says that the one agency that's exempt from having to mark utilities is Caltrans. So the utility wasn't marked, the contractor hit it, and they said, hey, well, it wasn't marked, we're not gonna have to fix them. And we just kind of went back and forth with them until finally we directed them that they were going to fix it. And so it took them quite some time to go ahead and fix it and hire a contractor. But in the meantime, I said, TRC had done some work on our behalf, and we couldn't get the project to close. So we shared all that information with the board last month under closed session. The amount of money that TRC has not been paid totals $103,593.94. And that's for the work to kind of catch up with the work that they've completed beyond up through the end of the contract and up through substantial completion. And then as a contractor has waded through the punch list items. Staff is also recommending the board authorize almost another $12,000, is $11,795, so that we can retain or keep TRC working for us as we get to the point where we're doing some conflict or potential claim resolution with a contractor. And we've asked them to kind of, again, help us make sure we get through the project closeout, because we're just that close. They've estimated about 64 hours of labor, and that's where that $11,795 comes up with. We've been very happy with TRC's efforts in documenting this project and getting us in a position that you know, if we do get into some sort of dispute resolution, we're confident that there is a good paper trail and record for the district to try and work out some sort of solution. But in the meantime, that's you know, out in the future. In fact, I think the general manager sent the latest letter to the contractor to try and suggest a settlement. But we're here recommending that the board authorize an amendment to the TRC contract so that we can pay them for what we owe them. And then also that you give us a little extra so that if we get to the point where there is some resolution or claim resolution, we can have them kind of assist us, because they've been through with us throughout the project the entire time, and it just makes sense from a consistency standpoint. So I'll leave it at that, other than to say that the staff report and the resolution, you know, was written by me and Jubin, and Tammy had her hands in it, and we also had Julie look at it too, because of the potential litigation. So some of the wording might look a little more legal than what you might normally see from me, and that's because Julie had her hand in it. And now to see if the board has any comments or questions regarding the staff's request.
Not seeing anyone turning on their microphone. Matt,
Did I turn on my microphone accidentally?
no, I just, I
did
had
now.
thought that you had, but you hadn't, but, okay. So if no one,
No, Kirk,
go
so,
ahead, Louis.
so right now, so this money is going to be money that we didn't budget, and it's probably more than the 10% contingencies, correct?
That is correct. This was money that was not appropriated for TRC's contract.
How is there any way that we can recoup this money?
Well, we're working on that.
So without giving too many details, we are
Correct.
pursuing liquidated damages. Okay.
So we're gonna pay first, and we'll try to.
They've
recoup later.
provided the services. That's why we discussed it with you last month. They
Yeah.
provided the services, and
No,
you can
no,
see for
they-
6 months, right? More than 6
Correct.
months.
Correct, but we do know that these services were provided because of somebody else's whatever actions
Correct.
or
Correct.
inactions.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay. All right, Kirk, back to you. I don't know, Kirk, if you have any questions to yourself.
Brian, you turned on your mic.
No, I'm ready to make a motion. If there's no further discussion, maybe if there is, do it then.
I'm satisfied with it as it is.
All right, I'll move resolution 2022-13.
I'll second.
Okay, can we call the roll?
Yes. Director Schmidt,
Yes.
Director Zuka,
Yes.
Vice President Vella,
Yes,
and President Wheeler.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Louis. You couldn't
was
even look up for
painful.
that one. I know, you couldn't
This
even look
was
up for that
painful.
one. I know. Believe me, I know. Okay, this next item is for Kirk. You want to lead the discussion for returning to in-person board meetings? Or Julie first, I guess, to give an update.
Yeah, let's hear what Julie has to say.
There's no update. Sorry, folks. The legislation that's pending hasn't really moved anywhere. Hopefully it will, but there just hasn't been any movement this month.
Okay, then it sounds like, based on what we've done in the past, that we would just continue to have virtual meetings as necessary until the legislation changes. Or we may want to revisit it in the fall after our August break and see what we want to do. But we seem to be working pretty well on it so far.
Okay, so maybe go the next few months without this item and bring it back in September, Kirk?
Well, we don't have a meeting in August scheduled, so just be, well, June and July, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, unless something changes, I'm not sure it's really necessary at this point in time.
Okay.
We did have the advantage of trying out the conference room with the new electronics. And so we have a better idea how a hybrid meeting might work going forward. But I don't think we're in a particular hurry to get back into the boardroom,
I'm glad that worked out.
unless
Yeah.
anybody else has a sense.
No, I
that-
mean, as far as I'm concerned, Kirk, I mean, either way is fine. You can decide to revisit every month. Just take 2 minutes to talk about it, whether it's going to happen or not, or we could say, yeah, with these next couple of months, we'll do them virtual. And then when we come back in September, we'll see at that point. So either way is fine with me.
I don't mind having it on the agenda. We do this and see what happens. We may have some sense as COVID numbers go down, it becomes more advantageous to be face to face, but currently the numbers are high.
A quick question on that.
Mhm.
COVID numbers, as far as cases in the South Bay especially, they're going up, right? I
Right,
mean, we're hearing right. They are going up. But hospitalization and deaths are not.
true.
Okay, all right.
And the problem is that nobody's tracking the COVID numbers the way they used to because there are so many home tests. So you really have no idea how prevalent things are,
Correct.
other than people are getting hospitalized. So the metrics are difficult to guess at.
Correct. Or the honor system, if somebody gets it, technically he or she should say something and but that's the question I had, because you read in some areas where it's completely as if this thing has gone away, and in some areas you see that cases are going up, and they keep on targeting kind of the South Bay, and it's moving north or whatever, so. But yeah, I think if you want to put it on the agenda, so we could spend a couple of minutes on it, we revisit, and then we'll see at that point.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Brenna?
Drought time. Yeah, so an update on some of the actions that just here have recently taken place. On the 24th, just a couple of days ago, the SFPUC, the commission itself, took a stance and adopted a system-wide water reduction plan of 11%. They had been working on one that was a voluntary 10%. Now they want to ratchet up slowly to 11%, and it kind of ties into most people or most agencies that have a water shortage contingency plan of stage 2 is like from 11 to 12%. So it's just kind of going ratcheting it up slightly more. We're anticipating in the next few days or so to receive from the SFPUC a request to verify an update on the remainder of the year as to how much water is going to be allocated to us based on an 11% reduction. We went through the same exercise before the end of calendar year 2021 in preparation for 2022 based on a 10% reduction. So we're anticipating seeing that. And then also too, Jeanette was just telling me that this afternoon that the state of California has something that they've sent out or have told water agencies that they want them all to implement their stage 2 water conservation plan. We have not really spent much time on it, and it sounds like they want the agencies to do so in June, which is just a few days out. So I suspect that at next month's meeting, we're going to be asking the board to do something to recognize a stage 2 declaration by the district in compliance with what the state of California is asking. That's kind of currently what we've heard the past few days with regards to water. Now let's just kind of go into some of the slides. So I wanted to show this first 2 slides are basically the same, other than they're about a week apart. And it's a little bit different than the slide I've shown you in the past. So this is a website that's still getting the same drought information, but they're just presenting it a little differently. So I thought I'd share it with the board. So this is the week of May 3rd, and you can see that roughly about 95% of California was considered to be in a severe drought stage, 40.5%, 41% in the extreme drought, that big red area that's kind of covering the central portion of the state. But there was nothing in the exceptional drought stage on the 3rd of May. Now you go down to the next slide, Tammy. This is a week later, and that extreme drought went from 40.5% up to almost 60%. So it just increased. And so still don't have any exceptional drought being reported or categorized, but a definite increase in the extreme drought. So then the next slide, this is the way we look last year, literally a year ago. The previous slide was May 10th, 2022. This is May 11th, 2021. And so you can see last year at the same time, we had about 13.5% of the state already in an exceptional drought stage, and a much larger percentage of the state in an extreme drought stage. And so I'm thinking about that, and you guys probably thought about this yourselves. I think, part of what helped out this year, the May 10th picture was the nice heavy rains that we had in October and December, and the snowpack that came along. I mean, we had record snowpack in the Sierra Nevadas, though it's been very dry since January, February, March are very dry. There's very little rain. You're going to see that in some of the other charts of information that we typically share with you when it comes to droughts. Let's go to the next slide, Tammy. So this is the same California picture, but in a different way. It's a bar graph, and it's actually showing the different types of drought over different periods of time, right? So you see on the left-hand side, 2000 is where it starts, and then on the far right-hand side, 2022. So, I mean, even as much as we might complain about 2021, 2022, boy, look at that, 3-year period, 4-year period between 2014 and 2015 and the exceptional drought that we were in that period of time. I'm sure a lot of us recall that. And I was just getting here in 2015, and I know that the board and the community and the staff are working really hard to try and reduce consumption. And our customers really came through. And I can recall, talking about how much water reduction folks undertook in order to try and combat the drought. I mean, I think we're like at a 28% reduction compared to 2013. And that's some of the things that we've been talking about, is trying to get that message out and ask our customers, remember what they did in 2015, think about that, and then how you can do that again because of the current drought situation. Next slide, Tammy. So the entire continental US drought map. And so you can see where we are on the left-hand side, but I want to point out that the Texas, New Mexico area, where they have some exceptional drought in that part of our country. And I was telling myself, I know there's this large aquifer in the middle of the country. It's called the Ogallala Reservoir. I don't show it on this, but I made a little sketch on a piece of paper that I have of this map. And roughly that part of Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas and so on, that covers about a third to maybe close to half of that Ogallala aquifer. You know, it's one of the largest aquifers in the world, and it serves a purpose there in that part of the country. And right now, it has to be under extreme pressure from the exceptional drought that's taking place in that part of our country. Next slide, Tammy. And then here's this rainfall chart that I've been showing the board the last few months since the beginning of this calendar year. And I think I'm going to take a little twist on it next month. That first column there, I'm actually going to show where we were at the beginning of 2022, because if you may recall, on January 1, 2022, the San Francisco downtown, that on January 1st, they had 16.3 inches of rain, up from July 1st through January 1st, which was 189% of normal. And since that time, they've had a little over an inch of rain fall over the last few months, or a couple of inches of rainfall. So I think what I'm going to do, just have comparisons. We can just kind of see how things happen, but it just gives you an idea how the rain picture has not been normal. We had an abnormal fall and winter. And then the first few months of the year, it's been pretty dry. And then you're going to see in some of the charts that the SFPUC shares with us that the rainfall pattern for April was kind of typical of what happens in April, but we had a very dry January, February, and March. Next slide, Tammy. And then again, a forecast for precipitation around the country over the next, in early May and late May. And you can see the white area covering the Bay Area and then probably about half of California, if not maybe 2/3 of California. Just not much rain. Even though I did see in the paper this morning that in Tahoe, they're anticipating a little bit of potential snowfall over the weekend or something like that, which is just tells you how weird weather can be. Next slide, Tammy. And then here's the precipitation index that the SFPU shares with us. And again, you've seen this already, and you can see how well it was, how well we did in October and December. But January, February, and March, very, very lean compared to what is normal. And then finally in April, the amount of rain that fell was fairly normal compared to the median rainfall for April. So I mean, generally speaking, not bad in terms of rainfall, but we still have a few more months before we end the rain season period. Next slide, Tammy. And then Hetchetchee, you can see the high year 1983, that top kind of brownish line. You see the 30-year average or median. Then you can see how 2022 started out. Boy, we were doing really good until the end of January, and then just kind of flatlined. And now we're just slightly better than where we were in 2021, which is that gold dotted line, and definitely better than 1977, which is that blue bottom line. But just didn't have a lot of rain these past few months, and it's kind of showed itself. Next slide. And Bay Area precipitation, almost kind of similar to the upcountry precipitation. The number's a little bit different, but you can see that the April rain for the Bay Area was a little above normal. Not bad, but still getting closer to what the normal year date would be for a rainfall year in this part of the state. And then our reservoirs. I made myself a couple of notes, and I thought they were interesting in looking at this, because again, the reservoirs, there are water storage tanks. So the water is going to be available for us through the remainder of the calendar year. And what I noticed that all of the larger reservoirs that hold 2 million acre feet or more, they were somewhere between 48% and 83% of their normal for this particular time of year, which is that green bar that goes across all these reservoirs. The 83% level was Dom Pedro. And you've got to remember that Dom Pedro is the water bank for the SFPUC. So I did a quick calc, and you're going to see that Dom Pedro has about 270,000 acre feet stored in there. So that's the water bank. And if you subtract that out from where the Dom Pedro reservoir is now, it puts it right at about 70%. So without the water bank, the Dom Pedro would be about 70% of historical for the time of the year. So that the water picture is not looking good. We are anticipating again that the governor is going to call for some sort of mandatory water conservation sometime during the summertime, just because these reservoir levels are not very good at all. Next slide, Tammy. And now look in the regional water systems, water storage reservoir levels. It's at 74%, which is not bad. Compared to last year at the same time, last year we were at 76%. So not much of a change there. The real big difference between this year's water storage and the SFPUC system and last year is that in the Tuolumne system, the upper portion of it, because of the work that they were doing in the tunnel that carries the water from the Tuolumne system down towards Don Pedro, they were doing a lot of work on the tunnel. So the water storage percentages in Hetch Hetchy and Cherry were a lot higher than they normally are. Last year, Hetch Hetchy at this same time was at 63% of capacity and Cherry was at 84%. Here you see them at 97% and 95%. And again, it had to do with the work that they were doing on the tunnel system. But overall, the amount of water stored in the regional water system is very similar to what it was last year. Next slide, Tammy. The total deliveries into the regional water system, you can see it week by week. So when I printed this out here for it looks like the first week of May or so is averaging 198 million gallons per day delivery. And you can just kind of see it's kind of in the middle of the pack. It's less than 2019 and a little bit low 2020, but a little bit higher in 2015. And listening to Steve Ritchie, the assistant general manager for the SFPUC, it was just telling everybody that, you know, where he'd like us all to be during the summertime is right around that 200 MGD level, you know, and he goes, if we can stick around there, then, you know, we can probably make it. But if we don't, then, you know, there's probably going to need to be some mandatory conservation measures. Just he wasn't committing to it, but he just kind of saying that 200 MGD was kind of like a magic number for the regional water system. Next slide, Tammy. And then here's our annual water use, just a simple line graph. The green one is 2022 and the orange one is last year. So you can see comparing just last year, April 2021 and April 22, we were down a little, almost 8.5% compared to last year. You know, pretty even with what we drew in April in 2020. And then of course, not much better than where we were in 2015. Our residential per capita was at 63.5 gallons per day per person. Don't have any information to compare to last year, but we are now, you know, we're tracking that information. And so we'll be sharing that kind of information going in the future. The next slide, Tammy, this is a cumulative picture. So again, as I was mentioning earlier, the SFPUC asked or told all of the wholesale customers that, you know, we're going to reduce your water allocation by 10% based on historical, and ours happened to be 1,144 or 1.144 million units of water, and they budgeted that over the 12-month period of calendar year 2022, and we haven't hit any of them, you know, and I don't think really anybody else has. And so what I'm showing here, the blue line is our 5-year average. The orange line is what the SFPUC was hoping that we would be hitting, and the green bar is where we're actually at. So in April, we withdrew 96,000 units of water from the SFPUC system. Our allocation based on what the SFPUC would like us to hit was 84,000. So we were 14.5% above that 84,000 during the month of April. Overall, you know, we've exceeded from beginning in January through April, we've exceeded our allocation. It's again a voluntary thing, but still, you know, been nice to try to hit it, and we've exceeded it by 11.6%. Next slide, Tammy. And then this is just drought tracking. The SFPUC did it a little bit differently than they have in the past month, but the two tables in there are similar. So you can see their periods are from July 1, 2021 through May 5th, 2022. And you can see the amount of reduction in the far right-hand column, that for the wholesale customers, there was about a 4% reduction over that time period. Then when you shorten that time period between January 1st through May 1st, the wholesale customers actually used about 2% more. I think that, again, people are starting to get the message out to their customers, or agencies start to get the message out to their customers, and we're going to see those numbers increase. And then the last few slides at the snowpack. And again, you can see, boy, it started out gangbusters, but since January, there hasn't been much snowfall. And we've actually, fallen below the 2021 snowpack and definitely below the median for the system. So not a pretty picture. And then in terms of the water that's available to the regional water system from the Tuolumne River, the 184,000 acre feet is actually not bad considering, the situation we're in. Last year, we received a total of 57,000 acre feet that was actually available to us. So we've already exceeded that by about 3 times at 184,000. Though in a good year, if we were to get 598,000 acre feet, that'd be enough to fill up the entire regional water system. I don't think it's going to happen this year. And so that is the drought report information. Are there any comments or questions from board members with regard to the information?
It's a pretty eye opener.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, good work, Ram.
Any questions? It is not an encouraging report, but it's realistic as to where we are.
Yeah.
I had a question, Kirk.
Sure.
Rena, you said that it's likely, and maybe I didn't hear you correctly about being asked to go to stage 2 next month.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll put that on next month's agenda. We just got the news today. And I'm going to go through the water shortage contingency plan because right now we're in stage 1. We always stay in stage 1, which is 0 to 10% voluntary, and they're called levels now. Level 2 is greater than 10 to 20%. So it's 10 to 20%. And this is when we notify the users that there's going to be a demand reduction of 20% necessary. It's tricky because, and the reason I haven't recommended it before now, because it's a voluntary ask. And the way this is worded, it makes it sound like it's mandatory. So it says upon declaration of a level 2, the district will implement the mandatory level 2 conservation measures. So we just need a little more time to review it and make a recommendation next month. We're totally not ignoring it, and because we didn't know when or what the state was going to direct, and they usually give us 2 weeks to implement it. We'll bring it back on at the June meeting.
Well, that comment about 2 weeks was the other question I had. Is there going to be a need for a special meeting or something like that?
No, it's not mandatory. There's still no calls for mandatory rationing. It's just that we implement this as soon as possible based on the notice they gave us today. So our board meeting is June 23rd next month. So it'll be about 2 weeks past that. But again, it's going to be voluntary. It's not mandatory. It's just required that we go to stage 2. So it's just tricky.
It's kind of
tricky.
confusing.
It is.
Be
It's
honest.
very, very tricky. And then the San Francisco Regional Water System, they're not asking for mandatory rationing. So we've dealt with this before back in 2015. And that's the discussion to have with the board next month. So since we got the notice today, I didn't expect, although I did, 2-week turnaround. I really thought they'd give us 30 days. And I think they did. I think it's 30. I mean, they said by June 10th, they want to see that suppliers are moving towards stage 2. So I know that at the last month's BOSCA meeting, again, half of us were in stage 1, half of us were in stage 2, and they all got the same notice today. So
they're sending, there's going to be notice saying 2 weeks you need to show action.
that you need to show that you're going to be taking action. I mean, even if you haven't taken it already, that you're taking it, because there's no way water suppliers are going to be able to get this done, every water supply in the state, within the next 2 weeks.
And
even
saying
if-
to them, we're planning to put it on our June.
That's exactly what
23rd.
I'll say.
Okay.
Yep. And there's no penalties, there's no fines, there's no nothing. Again, it's not mandatory. It's just the state is requiring that we get into stage 2. And they'll be asking me for the resolution, and I'll send them the resolution after you approve it next month and have the discussion.
Thanks, Tammy.
Yeah, and just for your information, board, so some of the level 2s, actions are going to be, watering on, excuse me, watering on different days, and we did this back in 2015. So, Jeanette and Ren and I have talked about this, and, talking about pools and spas and all the stuff that we're going to have to re-message back out again and ask people to, do the best they can not to do these things while we're in this. But again, it's It's not mandatory. It's voluntary. So it's just tough. It's
Well,
tough.
I guess, how does this align with the executive order though? Because the executive order isn't voluntary. But it's directing the state board, the DWR, to take action.
You know, I haven't
I
seen.
don't read the order from the governor as being voluntary.
Yeah,
I
no.
haven't read this announcement yet though.
Yeah, you're right. And we haven't received the order. I mean, it just wasn't it last night? Because I just.
No, the
got-
order from the governor came out like, I don't know, end of
Yeah,
March, April.
Yeah,
I
a
don't
couple
know.
of, yeah, it did. And,
Yeah.
and so
Executive
they've been
order.
waiting on the water board to decide on the date.
Yeah, so
That was
DWR
the
had to
date.
figure out what it actually meant,
Yeah.
but I didn't read the order from the governor to be voluntary. It
Yeah.
was level 2, 20%.
Yeah. So we'll go back and put all that together now that we have the date.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
report, Rena.
Yeah, lots of work.
Wish it
goes
was
into
prettier.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item, 7F, is Bosca update.
Yes, that's me. Thank you. The meeting was last Thursday. And one of the things that we discussed at Bosca was whether to continue the board meetings via teleconference. And it was indeed decided that we're going to continue. The Bosca meets once every 2 months. So the next meeting in July is going to be virtual as well. But we are kind of revisiting this every meeting because of waiting for, you know, any other policy that comes out or the conditions that may change. So that's one of the things that we discussed. And then we got a report on the status report on the budget as of March 31st and an investment report that we get, you know, every 3 months. Then the report from the SFPUC was given by Allison Castama because Steve Ritchie, you know, was not available. And it was pretty much in line to what we heard from Rena. Basically that the statewide drought conditions persist and that the SFPUC upcountry reservoirs, they will fill, but the entire storage system, including the water bank, is unlikely to fill unless this weekend, and maybe we'll have some other system coming in and that will dump some new rain that we haven't seen in the horizon yet. The commission is scheduled to act on May 24th to adopt an increased system-wide use reduction target of 11% in accordance with the government's request. This is what, you know, Matt was talking about earlier. The impacts to Bosca agency will range from about 7% reduction to up to about 35% reduction based on the Tier 2 drought allocation plan. These increases reduction will take effect July 1st. To achieve a system-wide 11% reduction, the region needs to keep system-wide demands below the 200 MGD that Rena was talking about earlier, which it looks like we're not going to, it's going to be very, very tough to meet. And a continued drought outreach campaign is going to continue emphasizing reducing especially outdoor usage. And this was something that I was so pleased to see from the water management side, that Mr. Leonard Ash from Alameda County Water District made a very, very nice presentation. And it was good to hear from the water management side that they will be brought up to the Bosca board and in front of the directors, and they give us their report from their perspective. He was very good, but not as good as Tammy was.
And
But
it's
she
pretty
came.
good though.
But
He's
she came.
very, yeah, thank you for that. He's very good though. I'm glad
Yeah,
he presented.
he is, yeah, he is. Anyways, the board approved the proposed work plan and the operating budget and the funding plan for fiscal year 2022-23. And the Bosca March 2022 total potable water usage was 3.6% less than March 2013, but it was 7.9% more than March 2021. So we are not doing as good as we did last year. So I think this is going to be coming down hard to a lot of us. The other thing that we discussed was that the BOSCA is actively supporting the governor's call for water conservation. Reducing outdoor summertime water use is the greatest opportunity to achieve necessary savings. The other point was the BOSCA has ramped up activity on several conservation program and initiated a coordinated regional drought messaging campaign with SFPUC to promote wise water use. And this information will be in the BOSCA website as well. From the Bay Delta Plan, on May 12th, BOSCA received a letter from a long list of respected non-governmental environmental agencies requesting BOSCA to drop its legal intervention in the Bay Delta Plan. And I think that they think that we are actually, BOSCA is actually suing, but we're not actually. We're having an intervention, which means that we are backing San Francisco PUC's action. And then that BOSCA has completed a report summarizing its pilot water transfer efforts, which has been going on for about 10 years now. And that's it. And the next meeting is going to be on July 21st. And Tammy, I don't know if you want to add on to this report from your meeting.
Yeah, so thank you, Louis. And I was just going to bring up the tier 2 discussion now consumes the majority of the WMR meetings. And one of the suggestions I made this month was just that we're going to have to start having just specific meetings on tier 2 because it takes up and takes away from some of the other items that we have to deal with. It's a very important issue. And Rena's our representative. I still attend because I have some background, having been here for 10 years and dealing with the BOSCA issues. So one of the ideas that I've approached President Wheeler about is just potentially having a board committee during tier 2 discussions, just so that you all are more familiar with it, and then working to prepare, like starting to provide some background on why we're here and what we're doing, and having regular updates. We've gotten through with the managers the soft skills stuff, like objectives and all that stuff. And now we're getting into some options and alternatives. The goal is to have this completed by December 31st of this year. And that's just not going to happen. That's not realistic at all. And so at the meeting last week, the conversation was engaging. And I actually commended the participants because they started talking about the contract ISGs, the individual supply guarantees, and those are important. And so as we move forward, they still didn't quite hit on the issue that is important to us and to me, which is the fact that when our ISG is 3.89 million gallons per day, and we're at 2.6, Ren and I have talked about this. We used to, back in the 90s, be at 3.4 and 3.5. And just through all these years of better plumbing code experiences and, just massive conservation, even with increased population and increased development, it just seems like some agencies have been allowed to develop more, meaning they're closer to their cap of their ISG, or they too have either built recycling or, projects that and messaging that have encouraged their customers to use less. And I don't quite know that that's been recognized enough. So I want to just have maybe a sounding board, with 2 board members, and I'll talk to President Wheeler next month when we meet for agenda review, and just kind of get some feedback on whether that's a good direction to go. And just bring along 2 board members and provide updates and get some feedback to whether this is something that we want to get into. We brought it up before, and usually what comes back is there's only 184 million gallons a day available, Tammy. So you guys are where you are, and others are where they are. But now that we're getting into water supply assessments for new developments, in fact, we're working on one now, and Rena just mentioned that there's 2 more coming in the pipeline. It just doesn't seem fair that we would say we can't serve water when others have been able to develop and serve water and get closer to the cap of their ISG. And we have not been able to do that because we've reduced and we've almost been somewhat penalized, and we're stuck now at this new level, if you will. So anyway, I wanted to give that little bit of a background and just, make sure that the board has the same thought process and wants that representation or not before we start shaking the stick during the presentation, because I'm not alone. I know there's other agency managers that feel the same, and or they've expressed that they've made a lot of conservation efforts and recycling efforts in their agencies to get where they are today. So that's all I'll say. Thank you. That was the core of the meeting last month, or earlier this month. I apologize.
Record, back to you. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for either one of them? Right, no, okay. So this is the tier 2 committee is going to be set up by Bosca. It's the same 27 different agencies, each represented. And there's no limit on how many people can attend, or is it's just a public meeting? So
No,
anybody who wants to,
the board meeting is public, but the WMR meeting is not public meeting.
okay,
It's closed. So Ren and I typically attend, and that's just so that we can consult, with, what direction or what options, and I just think a board committee would be helpful during this process, just to help make sure that, we're going to be in alignment with what the board wants to do as we move along through the process. It may not be immediate, but within maybe the next 60 to 90 days, as options start flowing out of them.
Are you anticipating that the board committee would go to these meetings?
No,
It would just be a
no.
committee that's meeting separately. Okay.
Exactly. You're not allowed into those
Yeah.
meetings. So
I
yeah.
didn't think so.
It'd be like a sounding board for staff and for Rena, just to make sure as they move along that, we are continuing to educate and keep you informed. And, obviously we're going to provide.
Let's just say
updates to the
Nicole could
board.
try to keep us out if she wanted to. But
Yeah. Others have tried, believe me. Yeah. There's one board member from Bosca that comes in there from Stanford, and I've questioned that.
well, I
before.
mean, I guess my point is I've attended those WMR meetings as a board when I was on this board on behalf of other people. Being a board member doesn't preclude you. It's just
Yeah.
you have to have a valid reason to be there.
Yeah. They no longer allow consultants in the WMR meetings.
Yeah, I know. I was the last one.
Yeah. No more. You have to be a representative.
They broke the mold as usual.
I
We did.
pissed them off too badly, and then they decided that was it.
We have quite that reputation at Mid-Peninsula Water District. So,
Yeah.
but it's good
okay.
discussion. It creates good discussion. So that's all.
Then I
Yeah,
guess,
I don't think it's a bad idea, Tammy. On the if there is a board subcommittee and the board wants to do that, the tier 2 spreadsheet that they've done is a nightmare. I played with it a lot in the past, and there's no way that that's going to come out in negotiations in any kind of a reasonable time frame, because everybody's going to be looking for, what is this? You change this knob, what does it do to me, in what percent cutback scenario, and all that kind of stuff. And then everybody will just take an opposed position if it's the wrong way. So
Yep. Agreed.
okay, well, we'll have to see what happens. Yeah. So on to management and board reports, general manager's report.
I have nothing to add to my written report unless there's any questions.
Okay. So Yeah. If no one else has questions. I'm not seeing anybody. Then next one is administrative services. Monique?
Yes, I don't have anything to add to mine either, but I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
No, I didn't have anything. And I'm not seeing anyone else. I don't see Brian anymore, so I can't tell.
No questions, Kirk.
Okay. Then we can go on to the operations report.
Yeah, I want to just make a note under the projects. It's not listed here, but just make the board aware that next month we're going to be bringing something, a request to allow Packport Consulting Group to provide inspection services, inspection services. One of our employees who's doing inspection on a current capital project now is going to be taken off. And so I've asked Jubin's office to prepare a proposal, give us a proposal on just kind of covering. It's not going to be a lot of money, but just letting the board know that we're going to be using them to do some work for us on the current capital project. And then in terms of just some maintenance things, you'll notice under maintenance that we had a couple of fire hydrants hit. Good to know that both hydrants, we know who hit them. The first one on Industrial Road was a young person hot rodding in his car and struck the fire hydrant. I believe, if I remember correctly, too, he actually rolled his car too, which wasn't a good thing, but some damage. And then on Notre Dame at Belmont, it was a tractor trailer that was trying to come off the school property and trying to get on to that Notre Dame there and couldn't make the turn. It was very narrow and he struck our hydrant. We're trying to wonder why the person did that. But anyways, we found out who he was. So both those people, their insurance companies and or they are going to be getting bills from the district for damaging district property. On the next page, 102, Tammy, just to like to remind the board how busy you are doing the locates. So last month we had 334 locates in support of construction activities in and around the community. Also in maintenance, you can see fire hydrant and valve maintenance. The operations staff were really out there busy with fire hydrants. We replaced a number of fire hydrants in the area, but also in the system, but also did some general maintenance to them. You can see we hit 24, which is quite a lot. I mean, literally more than half of what we did in just a last 12-month period in just 1 month. And then in terms of valve exercising, we're able to get out there and actually exercise 130 valves, which is literally double from what we've done the last couple of months. So proud of the guys for making sure that they're focused on maintaining the system. Exercising those valves is a very important aspect of what we do. And that's the last thing I wanted to point out, unless the board has any comments or questions to the information that I shared with you.
Hey, Rena, the valve exercising, we're doing it with the machine or by hand?
It's with a machine. We have a
machine.
little pull behind trailer. It's a hydraulic actuator, the valve you set on top of it, a little arm. And there's a little data logger that records the location, and you can set the torque for the valve. So there's all kinds of things that the guys, the operators can do so that they open and close the valve just to exercise it so that it gets stretched. And so when we get out there and have to physically close the valve, we can feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good.
That's a very important part of,
Yeah.
to me, the water system is exercising those valves.
Oh yeah, otherwise it's gonna take you 5 times as long, and we'll have people with shoulder aches and pains.
Yeah.
Because some of those valves are not easy to turn.
No, they're not.
So, okay, so earlier on, Rene, you mentioned that Caltrains are not responsible to locate their utilities.
Yeah, if you take a look
But-
at the law, they're
Yeah.
not.
So if those utilities are hit, then Caltrain's, what kind of legal arm do they have to get their utilities fixed and get reimbursed for it? Or how do they do it then? They just take them to court or what?
Well, in our particular case, we actually had to process a change order because it was something, it was an unknown condition for the contractor. They didn't know the Caltrans video cable was there. And again, by law, you know, the underground, you know, location law, I forget the statute, Caltrans is in there that said they're exempt from having to locate the utilities. You know, so this contractor hit their conduit and damaged their cable. And you know, it's a bill for, is it, Tammy, isn't it like $35,000 or $40,000?
I think
Something like
so.
that,
I
to
think that's what it
repair
was.
that
Yeah.
cable.
Yep.
Because
Which-
Caltrans doesn't have to locate their infrastructure.
Okay, which we paid then.
Yes.
Yep, we're responsible for.
Well, we're responsible for other people's utilities. Oh, that is cool. Can we be on that law too? So we don't have to locate.
It would be nice with
Yeah.
all the locates we're doing. I mean, you can see it's consistently in the 300s a month.
And we
Yeah.
cannot charge for that service,
It's
right?
free. It's
Yeah.
free. No.
It's required
they
by
don't-
law.
Yeah.
And other people, except for Caltrans.
Except for
the
Caltrans.
yeah, the state requires us to do it, but they don't require their own state departments to do it.
Right.
Oh, sweet. All right, that's it from me. Thanks.
Okay. So district engineer,
Yeah, Tam, are you the one advancing the slides?
Yes, there you go.
Okay, thank you. All
You're
right,
welcome.
just a few updates. The Harbor Boulevard Water Main Project, we submitted the 80% plans last week. We're currently preparing the 90% plans and specs right now. So we're still on schedule for completing the project in August. I'll hold off on the Hastings and Vine project after DeKoven. So DeKoven Lincoln, that project is moving forward. The project was delayed a little bit as the consultant was waiting for the staff to mark the facilities. However, work has begun to pick up on that. And I guess according to the update there, the project is on budget, but it is slightly behind schedule, most likely due to the looks like a facility marking. So Tim, if you could advance the next slide. So the Hastings Drive, Vine Street, Belmont Canyon Road water main improvements is currently under construction. So if everyone recalls, in November of this project was awarded in November 17th of 2021. And due to the material supply chains disruptions and delays, the district wasn't able to issue the notice to proceed until the 18th of April. And so luckily C2R engineering is progressing very nicely with the work. And so far in April, your standard kind of preliminary marking of the water main occurred. Contractor mobilized to the site. They have a yard that's along El Camino, and they did some potholing. And as of the end of April, installed 600 linear feet of our new 8-inch ductile iron pipe. With that, over the course of their first few weeks of installation, they have encountered sporadic veins of rock and large boulders within the trench alignment, and has unfortunately caused them a little bit of delay, and it has affected their production rate. We're currently negotiating with C2R on their affected cost. Our specifications do cover excavation of rock and large boulders. However, the amount that they have encountered out on this project is a little bit beyond what we typically see. And so we're going to negotiate with the contractor and be fair on the request. So before you is progress payment number 1. They have 85 of 95 working days remaining. And their work has been great. We've worked with them before, and they're continuing to do great work on this project as well. So they're currently, as of today and through the rest of May, they are installing their cathodic protection services and fire hydrants along Vine Street. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they're going to be tying in that street before they move on to the next street. I could be mistaken on that, but I believe that's their process. So this month's our current request is $234,000, you know, just in change. So Tammy, if you could advance to the pictures. I'm not sure what page that would be on. And so this is kind of, we thought it was important to show the board what the conditions that the contractor is experiencing out there. So they actually had to get a separate piece of equipment to break across the rock, and you can see the rock there in the first pages. So they actually have to get a whole ram attachment on another another excavator to be able to break through that rock. Luckily, they've kind of hit this rock sporadically throughout the alignment along Vine Street, and they have had some good production days where delays didn't occur. And so the second picture here, as you can kind of see in the picture, kind of waves. It almost looks like there's waves in the trench there, and all those kind of higher spots are rock, means rock that they had to break through. And then the next two pages are just some really nice shots that District Inspector Victor Fung had taken above. I believe that's Cortland View looking down towards Vine Street, and then another view of them installing the new 3-valve set there at the intersection of Vine and Cortland. The last thing I was asked to mention, Jubin had it on his plate to present our engineering year-end summary. However, since he is not on the call tonight, he's going to be presenting that next month to the board. So if there's any questions, at least on the Hastings project, I'd be able to answer those. And then any other questions on the other two jobs, I can make a note of and report back to the board later.
So Brandon, when a contractor has to bring that hydraulic hammer tied to the excavator, that one, I mean, do they ask for what additional cost, change orders or what?
Yeah, so they immediately informed the district that they are encountering differing site conditions. And so we asked the contractor to submit a formal letter and to what extent they're requesting, you know, their delays. And so for this particular instance, they had to go and get a piece of rental equipment attached with the whole ram. And then, you know, they may only be able to install 4 pipe per day versus their normal production of 8 pipe. And so that's where the negotiation comes in on our behalf for the district with the contractor.
Well.
And just to you know, further elaborate, you know, these underground conditions it's very hard to determine what kind of subsurface, you know, rock and soil that we're gonna come across. We could certainly, you know, you could pothole and you could do a bunch of geotechnical investigation, you know, throughout design, but over the course of 100 linear feet of pipe, you can't get every single spot known. And so there will be times, unfortunately, where you come across unknown conditions, and we do our best to cover, you know, to protect the district in these cases. However, it's apparent that in this particular case, it's pretty excessive, and the contractor generally bids on a certain production rate per day, and they weren't achieving it, so they let us know, and then we negotiate with them beyond that.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing anyone, so we can go on to the financial report.
Al, are you ready to deliver?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So this is the regular monthly report that you've gotten the last couple of months. As you can see under the actual column, we're running pretty good. In fact, I looked, at May, and the water commodity charges, fixed system charges is over $1 million between the two of them. And June, I'm sure, is going to be even higher. So we're going to hit the revenue target on the operating sources already, obviously have hit it almost pushing 700,000 already surplus in revenue there. And then the expenditures for the most part are on track. A couple are running high. Some are running low, but overall they're on target. So I don't see any issues on the expenditure side. And again, revenue is running high, which of the two, obviously, you want revenue to be running high. So the current year is looking pretty good in terms of making budget. And then this is a new report. I don't know the government code. It's at the bottom, where it's required. But anyway, it's basically a listing of the cash accounts, one place to the other, and then the reserves of the district, the reserves up here, then the various cash accounts running in through here. Over here, it's the interest earned year to date in the accounts. Off to the side here, we have a couple of ratios: quick ratio, current ratio. Current ratio is your current assets, cash, receivables, prepaid expense, divided by your current liabilities, which are your accounts payable. Quick ratio is basically the same figure. Some businesses, it can be quite a bit different because you treat inventory differently. Since we don't carry an inventory, there's no change there. So the only change between the two is not including prepaid expenses in the quick ratio that is included in the current ratio. So that's why those two are virtually identical. You're dealing with basically the same numbers. And then the last report, this is statement of net position. This mirrors, as far as the format, what's in the audit. It's a statement of net position. That's a governmental financial statement, but think balance sheet with it. It's got the assets and the liabilities. Because we're a government agency, we do not have an equity section. It's shown as net position. It's basically serves a purpose as an equity section. It's the difference between your assets and your liabilities. That's what that is. But again, all these accounts are, you'll see them in on the audits. These are not audited figures as far as that goes, but that is the format of the statement. So unless anyone's got any questions.
Thank you, Al.
You're welcome.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
I'm not seeing any questions. So we can go on to director's reports. So Louis, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, we had a lot of meetings this month. A lot of meetings, so. And besides the large number of meetings that we had, I didn't have time to do any other meetings, so that was it. Thank you.
Okay, Matt?
No, I concur with Lewis's statement about a lot of meetings.
Okay, Brian?
I concur with Matt's statement about a lot of meetings. That's it.
Okay, and to supplement all of the meetings that everybody had, I was at JPIA Aqua at the beginning of the month. Tammy's report covered most of what JPIA was doing, which is they are in a very good financial position and they're not expecting any significant changes or large changes to their cost basis. And Aqua was more concerned with the announcement about voluntary agreements on the Sacramento River Basin and sort of skirting around the fact that there were no voluntary agreements in the San Joaquin Basin and the eastern slopes. So like that was part of why we got that letter from the environmental groups to request that Bosca not continue with the lawsuit concerning the Delta plant. So, but there is some movement in terms of some of the water agencies allocating water to environmental purposes under the voluntary agreements in Sacramento. So I think that's someplace that it may end up going. We'll see. So other than that, I didn't have any other reports. Communications, Tammy?
None from staff.
Okay. Then item 10 on the agenda is our closed session. So we can adjourn the open session and go to closed session. They've
Could we-
asked us to give them 5 minutes or so to
Correct.
get that going, so everybody can take a short break
Thank
before
you.
trying to sign in on the new
Thank you.
Zoom.
Appreciate that.
Okay, see you
All
all.
right.
Good night,
over there.
everyone.
All right. Take care, Brandon. See
Good
ya.
night.
Thank
See
you,
you,
Brandon.
Tom.
Good night.
So we are returning from the closed session.
Right. 10:07. Julie, no report.
Nothing to report.
And then 10:08, we're gonna close it.
Close the open session. The board
Thank you.
meeting.
Thank you, guys. I'll be seeing you and talking to you or probably 2 or 3 times in the next week. So good luck tomorrow in the morning and I'll go ahead and give Rena the heads up now, Kirk. Okay.
Okay,
All right. Have a great evening, y'all.
okay,
Okay.
good
Good
night.
night.
night.